So, as far as scrapbooks and different memorabilia, things like that, what do you still have of your dad's?
Well, I've got some of it. There's a fella named Ronnie Pugh. He used to be with the Country Music Foundation, Country Music Hall of Fame, and he came to Houston several years ago, and I gave him quite a bit of that information, which they now have in the Country Music Hall of Fame, which I'm glad. It's good people researching and things that way. I've still got quite a bit. Honestly, I don't know how much I have. Uh, a lot. Uh, I'm somewhat of a pack rat when it comes to stuff like that, so I don't throw anything away. I don't know how much I have, but I've got quite a bit of stuff. Some of the pages from that scrapbook you put in the ShellyLeeAlley.com website, which I'm glad you put them there.
As far as Country Music Hall of Fame, where all has Shelly Alley been inducted as far as Western Swing Hall of
Well, he's been in
Fames? And
several Western Swing Halls of Fame in Sacramento, Seattle, here in Texas. So several Western Swing Halls of Fame he's been inducted into. I would like him to be. I don't know what we'd have to do for Texas writers, music writers. I think he would be certainly a fit for that, to be in that. His number one joy, he loved entertaining, but more than playing, he loved to write music. He loved to compose music, and he thought that way all the time. But we're trying to preserve, you and I, as much as we can of what he had because we believe it's historical. So he was definitely a pioneer of Texas music. No question about that.
yeah, you mentioned some Western Swing musicians and names earlier. About what about Bob Wills? Did he ever meet Bob or know him personally? We know "Traveling Blues"
Yeah,
was recorded by
Bob.
him and
Yeah,
yeah, the Texas Playboys.
I'm sure he did because during the time that Bob was coming up, the Light Crust Doughboys, Milton Brown, Daddy lived in Fort Worth. They all knew each other. We know that Milton used to do his songs on the bandstand. Roy Lee Brown, his brother, told us that. Daddy also went to Milton Brown's funeral, and he said the biggest funeral he'd ever seen in his life. They all knew each other. Um, so it was kind of a small music community, if you will, at that time. So each one knew each other, friends. Sometimes they played in each other's bands. Alley Cat wise, several of Daddy's band members went on to play with Bob Wills. Uh, One of them was uh, Leon McCullough. Believe it or not, I didn't know this, and Clyde didn't. Of course, Leon McCullough, famous steel guitar player with Bob Wills. Take it away, Leon. And Leon was playing in Houston years ago when I was playing with Red Novak's band, and we were backing him up at a place called Regal Ranch. And intermission, we went outside. Clyde already knew Leon, I didn't. And he said, Leon, I'd like to introduce to my brother, this is Shelly Lee Alley Jr., Shelly's son. And Leon said, man, he said, your daddy's band was the first band I ever played with. That would have been in Houston. Probably he was probably about 15, 16 years old. We didn't know that. Of course, he went on to Bob Wills and had his own bands and had his own success in his own right. Another one was Cameron Hill, guitar player. He was famous playing with Bob Wills. He and Jimmy Weibel, twin guitars. Another one, a bass player named Rip Ramsey, who played with Bob and had his own bands. A piano player named Doc Lewis. Doc played with my dad's bands in Beaumont, went on to play with Bob Wills, and I'm sure there's others also. A lot of guys came through Daddy's bands for recording. Of course, I mentioned Cliff Bruner, Pappy Self, just a bunch of others. I'll leave some out, but I know those that I mentioned went on to play and be Texas Playboys with Bob Wills.
Do you have a list or know of any that played with him previously, like in the 30s or even in the 20s, any of the orchestras? I mean, we know of a few names that are just on the recordings, but other than that, do you know of any?
I don't. The best musical historian of that era in Texas music is Kevin Coffey, and he mentioned one or two people he found that actually played in one or two of my dad's orchestras. I'm not going to even remember the names, But for as getting the facts on that and no more than anybody else, it's Kevin Coffey.
As far as songs, we talked about Traveling Blues. Was that his biggest hit? And as far as the Billboard's
Yeah.
top 10 and all, what all
By
did
far,
he?
it would be Traveling Blues. When they did it, when they recorded the song, here's an interesting thing about that. They didn't have the Billboard top 20 or any of that kind of stuff. So we don't know how popular Traveling Blues became. Interesting thing was, at that time, 1931, Gene Archer was recording under the name of Gene Johnson. And apparently, his record company found out that they just did Jimmy Rogers' Traveling Blues. So quickly they went down and recorded it a little bit later than January 31st, 1931, and they beat it to market quicker than Jimmy Rogers' version. But the Jimmy Rogers version, we have no idea how many that sold. During that time, however, the publishing company called Southern Music Publishing Company, Ralph Peer's group, they always maintained that Daddy sold that song to them and to Jimmy, which he never did. We finally, Clyde and I proved years later, didn't. But Daddy never got royalties on it. Then later on, of course, Lefty Purcell recorded it in 1951. It was a top 10 hit. I think it made as high as number 6, number 4. Lefty had 4 songs in the top 10 during that time, and Traveling Blues was one of them. During that time, on the Bluegrass Hit Parade, Bill Monroe had also recorded it and had a kind of a minor hit on Traveling Blues. Since then, so many people, Merle Haggard, as far as I'm concerned, had the very best recording of it ever. About 1970, same train, different time. But again, didn't have the rights on it then, didn't get any money on it. So many people have recorded it since, rock bands, you name it. About late 1980s, Clyde and I pushed it and proved to Peer Music that we should get that royalty. So now going forward, whatever royalties are due on that song, we get. I don't know how many have recorded. Every year, somebody else will come along. Mac Wiseman, who was big in the Grand Ole Opry and places back then. Hank Snow recorded it. Ernest Tubb recorded it. So many different people have recorded that song. And my daddy, sadly enough, never saw a penny of the royalties.
Well, you also Bob Wills of the Texas Playboys. That was kind of
Yeah, Bob Wills.
one
Yeah,
of my
thanks for
favorite
reminding me. Yeah,
versions was
Bob
how
Wills,
they did
Texas
that.
Playboys recorded. Tommy Duncan. It was on the
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany transcriptions. Tommy Duncan singing it. Texas Ruby, Curly Fox and Texas Ruby. Texas Ruby had a great song on it. Then there's different people that did these songs, like jazz people. Bob Crosby, the Bobcats, Bing's brother, did my dad's song "I'll Keep Thinking of You." Different people, but Traveling Blues is still being recorded today. From 1931, here's 2025, and people still recording that song.
I think John Mellencamp did
John
Gambling
Mellencamp
Barroom
did Gambling Barroom
Blues.
Blues.
That was
Sure
another
did.
Shelley
Yep.
song
Yep.
that Jimmy did
Yep.
back, 1933 is when they recorded
1932,
that
I
one?
believe it was.
32,
I think
yeah.
it was in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. So some of those songs, I mean, what, if you had to pick a handful, your top 2 or 3 Shelley songs, whether we know them or not, because obviously everybody knows Traveling Blues, but what would be your top 3 or 4 or 5 Shelley songs
The ones that I like,
yeah.
probably number one would be a song called "Broken Dreams." Another song called I'm All Alone" would be those top 2 right there. Very pretty songs, beautiful songs, great music and words. Uh, "I'll Keep Thinking of You" is another one. The first recording, by the way, of "Broken Dreams," Moon Mullican did about 1947, right before the record ban. But he did it in a waltz tempo because that was popular. Then later on, Billy Carter, great guitar player, recorded, and he did it 2/4 tempo, which is a lot better. And then several people have done it since then. My all-time favorite is "Broken Dreams" and a song called "I'm All Alone." But there's a lot of songs Daddy wanted to record or have recorded, but the record companies didn't want that. They wanted little funny songs, little off-color type songs, to put them to jukeboxes. And basically, you work for the recording company. You had a recording contract. This is what you record. And it really frustrated him. Some of his really better songs, they didn't allow him to record.